Hi guys, welcome to my new series of art lessons that are available online. The subject for this is colour pencils, it is the sparrows. There is a reference photo link in the description below, so you can go and check that out and download that if you want to use this exact photo that I used. So this is the first of 3 parts, and it is a live recording of the actual sessions that I deliver in person. So I describe during my demonstration what I'm actually going to do with small examples, and then I follow that up with my actual working it through the process, which is in time lapse. If you want to ask any questions, please put them down in the comments below and I will follow them up. If you're interested in joining the art course, then either in person or online, you can check the details for that at seancownley.com. Again, the links are in the description below. The online version of the art course is new and is going to provide opportunity for inquiries and questions, as well as feedback after each session as well. So please jump over onto seancownley.com and book yourself on a art lesson or book yourself on an art course, and I look forward to seeing you there. I really want to bring my work out to a bigger audience, and online is the way to do it, so it doesn't matter where you are. Anyway, let's jump into the first session. Starts off with a bit of time lapse for the drawing and then jumps into the actual live recording from the session itself. This is part 1. Part 2 and 3 are also linked in the description as well. See you at the other side.
send you the video link of today's session, I will also have my drawing video in that as well. So you'll get me drawing as well, because all of you have done paint with me, and you know, and you all, so I know that you all know paint. And the big difference is if you stick blue and yellow together in paint, you're going to get a lush green. You can't mix pencils together the same way. You have to think in terms of layering. So most pencils have a transparency to them. So you layer a colour, layer a colour, layer a colour, layer, like this, and you will in the end be building up 8 to 10 layers of colour pencil over your piece. So yeah, you can really build up very deep, lush colour, but it takes time to get up to there. You're not going to get to that straight away, okay? And that's part of the reason why colour pencil takes a long time, is because you have to think in terms of layering up. So the other aspect of colour pencil when it comes to colour mixing, when we sit down with paint, and we've got a photograph like we've got here, then we can match accurately any colour that's there. Because paint, you can really shift the subtleties of how much pigment you put together and mix one solid colour. You don't have that option with colour pencil. You're stuck with the 200 pencils that Marilyn has got, or the 30 odd that we our standard set. I haven't actually looked to see what pencils you three have got yet, so I'll have a look at those in a minute. I use the Faber-Castell, the polychrom. That's not the polychromos. I use the Faber-Castell polychromos pencils. But that's my complete set. That is only about half of the polychromos range. The main difference between Faber-Castell and say Derwent or Caran d'Ache is the Faber-Castell are oil-based pencils, whereas nearly all other brand of pencils are wax-based. It realistically doesn't matter in the end. Pauline used to say that she could never put her Derwent pencils over the top of her Faber-Castell, that there was some weird interaction. But I use Derwent, those are Derwent, some of these are Derwent, and I don't have a problem layering one over the other. It's just about the carrier, so I wouldn't worry about that kind of difference. I prefer Faber-Castell because I find I can put more layers of pigment down than I can with the waxed-based pencils. But then, for example, Caran d'Ache, which is what you've got, I think, the pigment in Caran d'Ache is really strong, and you probably don't need to layer up as much. It's a very, very strong. They're very soft. They go over. They're very almost pastel-y. They go over layering very easily. So that I just wanted to cover, more so than your brand of pencil, is more so that you have to be able to layer up, and you're going to look for colours, and you're going to have to think, well, how am I going to mix that colour? Because it's not as easy as when you've got paint in terms of colour mixing. You have to sort of squint at your photograph, squint at the colour. So I'm looking at this area here, and I can see I'm going from this kind of almost greenish sort of into these tans, and then this is almost a pale lilac up here when I squint at it, if you actually really take the time to look at it. Does that make sense? Here we've got very bold colours, the darker purples and blues. I wouldn't worry so much about those right now, but mostly overall it's these lovely sort of siennas and oranges and browns that sit in the bulk of the bird itself. So that's what you're after at the start. You're thinking, what colour am I going to pull out of what I own that's going to match that picture, that image? Does that make sense?
Looking at the first layer of that bird.
Yeah, you're thinking about the core colour that sits underneath the smaller details. You know, if I look with my eyes wide open and glasses that I can see through these days, You know, I can see lots of different colours and lots of little details. We're not after that tiny little detail. We want to squint, lose all the little details and see the major blocks of colour and what the core colour is. And by core colour, I mean the pencil that you own that's the closest approximation to what you can see. Okay? If you've got a big range of pencils, that's an easier job. If you've only got a set of 12, well, it's a more limited job and you have to work within that. That's the point I'm trying to make mostly. So with that in mind, whenever I set up for colour pencils, and you probably noticed it when I had my portfolio out just, I tend to have a spare scrap of paper, and I like to use the paper that I'm going to work with as well, but you can just use, you know, some copy of paper. I like to have a spare scrap of paper to make my swatch. Because the other thing is,
you go home and forget which one
you go home, and especially if you're working on a dozen different colour pencil pieces, you forget which pencils you've used. And yeah, it is very easily done. So when I'm looking, so okay, let's look at this one here. I'm going to think about this colour, this coloration that's in the base of the bird here. I'm looking for light kind of chalky brown sort of colours. So I mean my browns, I mean I've got very limited sort of array of browns. I've got this one here which might work out, this one here which might work out, this is a little warmer than that. I've got that sort of greenish, yellowy green sort of cast in there. Yeah, those are my watercolour pencils.
Oh.
So these are, so yeah, just to say, these are Faber-Castell the watercolour pencil, whereas these are Faber-Castell the polychromos. So there's different types of pencils within a brand. I can use those just as easily, as just normal pencil. I don't have to add water to them, but I'll show you that when we come to deal with the background more so.
And you mix the two.
Yeah, so I could use these, and if I wasn't ever going to add water, that's fine, because I just use them as they are, as just normal pencils. I don't
know whether it's my phone, because I've only just had it and I don't.
but you're not obliged to add water just because they're watercolour pencils. You have that choice then, you know. So. But for right now, I tend to stick mostly with my Caran d'Ache and my shocking. And my Derwent colours. I'm going to go look in the back now and find I haven't got my knife with me as well. You got your knife with you by any chance?
No, it's in the art bag with all my paint.
Oh no, I have. I've got it. Yeah, I've got it.
The pencil case with rubbers and sharpeners and stuff in the paint bag.
So, this is your first bit of practice as well. When you're creating your swatch, what I want you to do is create a square that's roughly about 1 inch. Okay? And this is one of the biggest secrets to good colour pencil work, is how you colour in. All right. When we sit down and we don't think about it, or when the kids are doing it, or adults, you know, when they're first starting, the tendency will be to do this. Yeah. This is the tendency, is to just colour in doing this. Now, what will happen is as you keep building that up, you will get this kind of motion blur effect in your colour pencil work, because there will always be this angle, and you'll do that for everything, and by the time you've done that for everything, background included, you've just got this this effect, and the more you carry on building up your colour, it'll just become more and more apparent. It gets hard to lose it. So the secret, I mean, obviously sometimes you've got to move whatever because of the constriction of the shape that you're trying to create. But the secret is to work circular, is to do this. And just keep going and keep going and keep going. And because there's no direction to it, you will end up with really nice flat colour. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And even if a couple of these marks have gone heavy, bear in mind how much pressure you'll be applying at the end on your final layers of pencil work. They will be knocked out. The important thing is there's no directional blur to that colouring. Okay, so I mean, I get quite fast sometimes, and people say, "Oh, but look, you're going side to side now," and I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm changing the rotation of my circles, but it's always a circle. It might be a bit flattened out. It might be a circle that's more like that than that. But I'm getting that nice flat colour because I've got even if I'm working very, very fast and it looks like I'm just going backwards and forwards, I'm changing my rotation. So I'm not constantly going that one direction. And we all do it. We all do this, It's because it's easy. That's the way to start. So just keep working with this circle and you really start to get a nice flat colour. The other thing to do, I'm gonna slightly adjust my hand there because I was quite right. The other thing is when we start our first passages of pencil, hold the pencil past the halfway point this way. Don't hold the pencil down here. Because the other secret to good colour pencil work is pressure. And the moment you do this, you will put heavy pressure into your marks. Whereas if you're back here, you can't, because the pencil's just going to flex in your hand. Does that make sense? The moment you start doing this and you get up to this level, this is a technique in colour pencil. This is burnishing, but you don't want to reach this point too early. You don't want to be doing this kind of pressure too early, because when you get to this point, you are crushing the nap of the paper. And so you prevent the ability to take other colour over the top. The other colours will just sort of slide over the top. And you'll come to know that specifically to your own brand of pencils. I find with Derwent you can get up to about eight levels, layers of colour pencil, getting progressively heavier, and then no more pigment will come off. It'll just slide. With with Faber-Castell, I've got up to 10 or 12 layers of pigment, and can still add more. Okay, you're all okay with that? Yeah. All right. So the first thing you're going to do is go along and find what colours you think are going to work best for your piece. But yeah, try and keep your pencils sharp. So these are my sort of two colours that I'm considering first of all for my the sort of the base part of this bird. And I don't want to know what they're like at full strength. I want to know what they're like at this point here. The lighter pressure. You don't want to be pressing hard. No white knuckles. With the Faber-Castell, that's number 188, and with this one, that's 170. Okay. Now, some of you, like my mum, has pencils that don't have an indicating number on it. They have a name as well, but I only need the number. My recommendation with that is to take a piece of masking tape, wrap it around the end of the pencil, and number them as you go.
Put your own numbers on.
Just put your own numbers on, 1 to 10, whatever that is. So yeah, so just so you start to mark your own pencils up as you go. That's what I would do. So I want you to create some swatches of the colours that you think you're going to use for both birds. I want you to create some swatches that get nice flat colour. I want you then to take two of the colours, and I'm going to do it for the bird here. You notice I'm doing all this here before I commit to there. But the other thing I want you to do is to create a swatch of, particularly here, because we've got a nice blend, and see if you can blend the two colours together. So I've gone slightly wider and narrower. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at one end, and only this midpoint pressure Start to block that in. And then try to ease off the pressure and get us as close as I can to a gradient by easing off the pressure more and more and more until I'm basically at the white of the paper. And we want to try and get that as smooth as you can in terms of from strength to that strength, okay? And you're going to go in with your other colour and you're going to start at the other end doing exactly the same thing but working back the other way. And it's going to be this that helps you decide that those two colours mixed together are going to approximate what I'm after in this area, or what you are after in the area that you're looking for. But it's also giving you the practice of blending. So now we get this nice blend from one colour to another colour. Does that make sense? Okay. We go back in, we can strengthen it up, go back in. This is that layering, because now we're going to take this colour again over the top of that colour. Light pressure. Notice I don't have to be as thorough either on this second pass. I'm just glazing a little colour over. And then again, green. And I'm fairly happy that that colour, or that combination of colours is giving me what I want roughly in these areas, as in a lighter passage. Remember, it's a lighter passage of paint, of pencil. We're not coming up to this strength just yet. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so you've worked on your colour swatches. So I've played around at the beginning, like I said, with these two colours to start laying down a very light glaze of colour. I'm keeping pressure, you know, really holding the pencil right back at the top here, so that I'm hardly putting any pigment on at all. You know, I'm not putting hardly any pressure on at all, so that we have lots of opportunity to build up. But also this is very, very light. We'll be using our white pencil to some extent over this area as well, but we'll come to the challenges of the white pencil further down the line. So you still want to keep a harmony across your piece. You don't want to be going crazy with every colour that you've got. Well, maybe you do, but yeah. I mean, I'll leave the choices. I'll leave the choices to you. But basically, that same base colour that I laid in all of these tans here, I used here, and I went over the whole bird with that colour, this 188, which is a sanguine. Is the actual colour. I went over the whole bird with the exception of the sort of the light highlight on the top of the head and the white here. I actually went through this area by mistake, but I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So where it's white, I've left that alone. So I layered that first. Then we're into that. Okay, how do I approach this colour? How do I start getting there? So when I look at it, it's quite a vibrant yellowy orange brown colour. Okay, you may have the exact colour in pencil, but I would still recommend use at least 3 pencils in any colour anywhere, or that you go to. Okay, because you get a more complex colour then. So I was looking at it and I'm thinking it's a very yellowy brown. But if I look at the very tiny sort of little highlights of the feathers, that's got almost an orangey cast to it. And I've got these oranges, this brown goes much more orange down here. So I use this pencil so much. So I did over, I'm going to demonstrate that here because the 2 heads are basically the same. So I've done this one, I'm going to demonstrate it here. So that base colour that's down is that sanguine. So then I'm taking the orange and I'm putting the orange into the bulk of that mass of the head there. Using that circular motion, looking at the shape that it comes down, it's sort of, there's not any up there at all. It's that sort of more lilac-y colour that I said before. But it gets really nice and rich down here. So I'm just looking to fill out that richness. And you will notice on my swatch, here is that eventual colour I ended up with. And you notice I've put +113, +118. That's the 2 colours that I'm laying over to get this colour. And it's kind of important that you remember what sequence you put the colours down in, certainly when you start off with, because you're going to repeat that sequence 2 or 3 times as you build up the strength of colour. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's making this note here is worthwhile. So just circular motion, filling out that rough area of the space. Obviously we've got a very hard transition between that point and that point there. Don't worry about that right now. We'll get to that as we strengthen up those colours and we start moving our fingers further down the pencil, so we are actually creating the edges that we want. Right now, don't worry too much about very distinct edges. And then you'll notice I've got this, so that's an orange glaze, 113 in the Faber-Castell. And I use this pencil so much. I really do use that one a lot. I find it's a really nice, warming, very transparent colour. So you can really warm up almost any colour with it. So then I want the redness. You know, and I mean, I have a bigger range of kind of reddish colours that I can draw from. But this one seemed to suit my needs. So I felt that was a nice step up from the orange. And that was my choice. That's how I came to make my decision of which pencil I'm going to use. And it's exactly the same thing again, just laying over that colour, just building up the strength, but not too much.
What number is that, Sharon?
And this is 118, which is the scarlet red. That's pretty much the only kind of warm place that there is there. So you can see I'm starting to build up that strength. We're nowhere near at full strength yet. That is one passage or sequence of pencil to get the richness that I'm after there. Looking into this area, we've got a lot of detail in this area, and there are a variety of ways we can get all these little marks, but we don't want to worry about those yet. That's in our next session, is starting to think about that kind of thing. Right now we want, if you squint at it, all those little feathery marks, they all disappear, and we start to just see the blocks of colour, the little chunks of colour that are around. And it's basically this tan colour that I was using is a very patchy sort of up here. So I can be fairly kind of, you know, liberal with how I put that down there. I just need to be patchy, just really kind of scribbling it in. We obviously have basically a white, but it is a white with a tint in it. And I'm going to say this is the one pencil. I don't know what I'll do when this one finally runs out. This is a Derwent Studio pencil. It's a light violet, and it does such a delicate. So if you have a light lilac colour, then go for it. Go for it. If you don't, you want to be in the lighter blues, like this one here, which is a light ultramarine, if I remember right. Yeah, the light ultramarine in the Faber-Castell. Something that just puts a coolness into those areas. This is cool, this is warm. You're playing with that temperature, okay? And so yeah, the lightest of touch with this pencil, when I'm working into areas that are basically a white, I want the absolute lightest of touches. So really, really hardly, you know, right at the back end of the pencil, you know, and just start to lay in that kind of hint of the lilac there. You know, it's only a blush. I've already done it in these white areas here, up here, but coming down and just laying it in. And it's a colour, I mean, you know, depending on your eyesight, you might not even be able to see it. You know, I mean, we all have varying degrees of eyesight. It's a very, very delicate colour right now. It's such a small hint of colour. And we want to keep it that way right now, because this will eventually be the white that you can see there. That's what it will eventually look like. Right now, it won't look like that because it's surrounded by white paper. The one thing I've done to this one, which I haven't yet done to that one, is I have picked a light green. The background is basically going to be an abstract green, out of focus as it is there. And all I've done is I've gone round and I'll not do it on this bird. I've just gone round and I've just very quickly, just outside of my graphite line, I'm just doing a quick pencil line, just so as I know where my edge is going to be. Okay, it only needs to be quick. It doesn't need to be super detailed. You're just going around and following that graphite line all the way around, pretty much just on the silhouette. I'm going to get into some equipment discussion now.
I'll just ask you, Sean, you know this green bit there?
Yeah.
Did you use the two colours there?
Yeah, that's this blend that we did here. That's what I did there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the practice, just to make sure that blend looked okay. Two pieces of equipment that I would say are essential. Probably this one more than this one. Electric eraser that works, and a Tombow micro eraser. But these micro erasers, they're a really hard edged eraser, and so they're really good for getting in and noodling details back into your pencil work. But also they're pretty good for going back in now, because I can get rid of the majority of my lead pencil. See, I can just slide that eraser over the top there. It's picking out the graphite, but it's hardly touching the colour pencil, because colour pencil's much harder to come off the paper. I don't need to be rubbing at it hard like this, but I can just scoot along and I can take out now that especially here where, you know, you're going to have very light colours, and I'm left then with just the drawing in colour pencil. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously here, for example, internally, I know I've got this yellow meets this warm colour like it is here, but I can also see that there are some darks there. I'm going to deal with that in just a second, but I can take out that now because I have enough information with just the colour pencil that's there already. We've got some darks to deal with, and it's worth getting in darks early. So I'm going to take my black. So I'm just going to look at the sort of the darks that are in the head here. If I look at this sort of curving shape that kind of comes back, it gives me the edge at the back of the beak just here, and it comes around. We have that light gap around the eye, and then it carries on here. But what that's doing is it's giving me This is where we're changing the drawing from the graphite that we did have to colour pencil. It's giving me this sort of shape. Notice I'm still only holding the pencil halfway down, even though I'm trying to get a bit more control here. And it's because I still want to keep the pressure on the pencil quite light. As I work into this piece. Okay, and then we've got the eye itself. So the graphite line of the eye is still here. So I'm going to work up to just inside the graphite line of the eye. With the black, it'll go over the graphite relatively well. And then I want to start working some tone into that. Now you might say, well, that's not really black, it's actually a purplish kind of colour when you look at it closely. But this black will ensure that it stays, whatever colours we lay over the top of it as we layer it, it ensures that it will stay dark by comparison, or desaturated by comparison to everything else. So that's laid in the dark of that sort of passage there. I want to get the eye done as well, and that's laid in the eye. Now I'm going to take my Tombow, my little micro eraser, and I'm going to lift out the bit of graphite pencil that I've just left there. I left that little gap, I worked either side of that graphite pencil. And right now it's kind of a hazy sort of halo around there, but as we build up the colour and the strength, we'll start to harden that edge off as it is there. The one thing I did do by mistake is I went through my highlight in the eye, so I'm just going to use my Tombow to just lift that highlight back out in the sort of the ball of the eye, just so as I'm not creating myself problems further down the line. So I would go around and I would look at the darks that are, for example, underneath the beak here. Slightly different here because you will actually start putting in little flecks, as we have there, the little tiny short marks that create that sort of feathery texture. And that will give you an opportunity to do a little bit of practice just on that area there, because you're going to be doing a lot of that as the picture progresses. I wouldn't do any of these down here, these little darks down here. Just ignore that, other than getting in the block of the base colouring. So obviously I have the one on this side to do as well. I mean, I'm not going to make you stand there and watch me do all of that, because you'll be here till later this afternoon. So that's pretty much it for the darks there. We do have the dark, which is this bluey purple colour, and you can, if you look at it, you can see there are variations of colour within it. If I look, you know, we've got a much more richer blue here, a desaturated purple blue here, it's a redder purple there, it's almost black here. That's just in that one little patch there. It is not one colour. Yeah, don't look at all those and go purple and do the whole lot, because it isn't purple, you know, or it's not solely purple. So I'm going to look at my purples, which may be a more limited range. See, these purples are quite bright. That purple might actually be a nicer purple. That's quite a dark purple. This is out of the Derwent set again, and this is Imperial purple. But it might be a nice sort of starting point. It's got enough. Let's pop it on here, so we can see this. I'll be very quick with this swatch just. So there's quite a bit of red in it. You know, it's got a warmth to it, but it's not you know, as red as this purple, you know, which has a lot of red in it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's just the right balance. But again, that's because that's what choice I've got. You may have one purple in your set and that's it. That's all you've got. You've got to then affect that purple or red or whatever with other colours. So you might have to add more blue to it or whatever. But this purple looks like it's going to do the job. What I'm going to do is I am going to I've still got my graphite here, so I'm thinking about my graphite, just working just inside that graphite. With every layer of pencil I put over the graphite, I make it harder to get rid of the graphite, you see. That's why you always work just next to it, literally just next to it. So I've drawn what is the shape of the full feather. Now obviously I've got this area of orangey brown sort of colours here. So this purple area is I'm going to draw just inside that so that I get the right shape. And then I'm just going to lightly just work that purple over that area. Just getting the first passage of colour into there. And then rinse and repeat, as they say. Get the next one in, roughly draw out the sort of the shape that I need, pull that up there and back in again. This pencil I can feel is having a harder time going over the underlying colour, and I've actually had to move my fingers down just to get a touch more pressure. This is why I say, you know, sometimes it's going to be about the pencils that you own and how they play. And then obviously this is a different branded pencil to what's there. You know, it's Faber-Castell underneath there, which are oil, whereas these are wax. So that could be a part of the reason. But I know that it'll build up without much problem. And carry on. Then I want to go in and I just want to get rid of, because now I've got this edge now that I can see because of the purple. I just want to get rid of that little bit of graphite, and I carry on, get rid of the bit of graphite, carry on, so that I'm slowly getting rid of the pencil lines that that are ugly. I don't like to use the word ugly, but they will make your colour pencil look a bit ugly. I think I've covered everything that I need you to sort of do. The only area I haven't touched on is the lichens and mosses and the branch. And I would just pick a nice light, very yellow green and just block that whole mass in with a nice yellow green. All of these details will come from what we do afterwards.